Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sally Berkery, and I'm the Managing Director of CEW UK, and I'm really delighted to have you all with us for today's member webinar presented in partnership with Positive Luxury. We're so pleased to have you with us as we explore how embedding sustainability into your business strategy can unlock powerful commercial advantage, from operational efficiencies and cost savings to stronger brand loyalty and a competitive edge in an increasingly conscious consumer landscape. This session today is all about setting your brand on the path to long-term growth, resilience, and leadership in the luxury beauty sector. And to guide us through, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Charlotte Astle. Charlotte is the Growth and Client Success Manager at Positive Luxury, where she's spent the last 2 years working closely with clients to drive ESG progress and support purpose-led initiatives. She brings experience across the luxury beauty industry, having partnered with leading brands such as Tom Ford Beauty, 111 Skin, Bamford, and Miller Harris, to name a few. Driven by a passion for embedding value-driving initiatives, and is committed to being part of the transformation of the luxury industry towards a more sustainable and ethical practice. So we're really lucky to have her here to join us for the next half an hour or so. Charlotte's going to be asking some questions throughout, so please do answer these as we go, and also feel free to post any questions that you may have in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen, and we'll try to answer as many of these as we can before we close today's session. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Charlotte. Over to you.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Sally. Really delighted to be here today to talk to you about growing your brand sustainably. So by the end of today's presentation, I hope that you feel empowered to understand the business case for sustainability and have some great case studies and examples to take into your business strategy. I'd like to begin by setting the scene and going over the luxury and beauty landscape today, understanding how consumers are interacting with sustainability and what that means for their purchasing decisions today. Then I'll turn to touch on what return on sustainability investment can look like tangibly. I'll give some real-world examples of returns on sustainability investment and how Butterfly Mark certified brands have implemented this into their businesses. And finally, we'll close the session with how you can embed sustainability into your business, a brief overview. And we'll end with some Q&A. And as Sally mentioned, I'll have a few questions. So of course, feel free to put your responses into the chat, and we'll take a look at those later in the session. So firstly, I'd like to give a bit of an overview of who Positive Luxury are. We are the sustainability experts for the global luxury industry. We really focus on helping businesses meet higher and higher standards for people and nature, and we're hoping to transform the luxury industry for the good of all. From our ESG assessment and consultancy services, we help businesses fast-track sustainability action, prepare for legislative shifts, build resilience against the impacts of climate change, and communicate with credibility. We work with over 200 brands across the luxury sector globally, and we don't just work in the beauty and fragrance space, we also work with fashion and accessories, interiors and living, jewelry and watches, premium drinks, and travel and leisure. So these are just a few of the clients that we work with. We're known best for our Butterfly Mark certification, which we created as a mark of real change, guiding luxury consumers to select verified brands meeting higher standards. So we really believe in progress over perfection. Sustainability is a journey, which I think you'll see here today, and many of you can agree with. And we also believe in difficult work over easy wins. I'd like to now open up with a question before moving on to scene setting. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are the major challenges that prestige and luxury beauty brands are facing today. So please do share your thoughts in the chat, and I'd love to take a look at these later and have a think about, you know, how the landscape within luxury is transforming and changing. So to set the scene before getting into the details of return on sustainability investment, we're seeing a lot of changes in how consumers are interacting with luxury, their purchasing habits, and also what sustainability means today. So, firstly, spend is moving towards experiences. The luxury consumer's spending is shifting more towards travel, dining, personal well-being, and investment into these areas and away from physical goods and products. This doesn't mean that physical goods and products and luxury are becoming irrelevant, but rather that the dollar is shifting and this experiential side of things is growing. There's also an increased complexity when it comes to the ESG or sustainability, environment, social governance landscape for businesses. So, corporate governance has shifted its focus to very topical things like AI, geopolitics, and tariff impacts. And this adds a layer of complexity to how businesses are assessing ESG and the value that it brings to their strategy. And with this global complexity, brands are having to redefine their value and have sharper focus, greater cultural relevance, and growth really rooted authentically in purpose. So these and all the socio-political and macroeconomic factors that are happening right now culminate in the luxury slowdown. Macroeconomic headwinds, shifting client preferences, and a deteriorating value proposition in luxury is changing how luxury brands are having to interact with customers and think about their strategy. So this is a really important time, and really we see it as an opportunity to look again at what sustainability means for your business. And with the luxury cost base under particular scrutiny, the old playbooks are being dusted off, C-suites are reshuffling, there are labor reductions and cutbacks. So this influences how we're advising our clients and the discussion for today. Now I just want to touch a little bit on understanding the consumer landscape and what customers are looking for when it comes to sustainability today. So ultimately, I think I'd like to share some stats with you that illuminate what we know, which is that consumers do care about sustainability. But what does this mean and how does this look in the numbers? So firstly, a study that came out in Vogue Business actually showed that to win back customer loyalty in the luxury sector after price reduction, the second most influential factor is being more sustainable, demonstrably more sustainable. We're also thinking about future customer category shifts. So 45% of Western Europe's total investable wealth will be controlled by women in 2030. So taking this into account along with younger generations, like Gen Z, 90% believe that companies have a responsibility to address environmental and social issues. So environmental and social issues are still quite relevant for consumers, despite what might be discussed in mainstream media. Conscious consumption. So over 70% of luxury consumers do their research online pre-purchase, and 70% are also interested in supply chain transparency and will soon be researching in store. So, I think now more than ever, consumers can have access to a lot of information and are empowered to do their own research. And they're looking for transparency and traceability in brands' supply chains now more than ever. And the stats do show that 80% of consumers say that they are willing to pay more for sustainably produced goods. And sustainably produced goods benefit from a 9.7% premium despite cost of living pressures. I'll touch on this shortly, but the say-do gap is a very important thing to address as well, which is that many customers say that they're willing to pay, but their actions don't always align with this. So how can we address this issue as well? But ultimately, all things being equal, sustainability is the tiebreaker when it comes to purchasing choices. Here's just one study I also wanted to highlight on the benefits of marketing sustainability. So this study was done by NYU Stern, and it found that sustainable products are not only capturing a larger market share, but they're also growing at a faster rate compared to their non-sustainable counterparts. Despite high inflation, sustainable products held 18.5% of the market in 2024, up 1.2 percentage points from 2023. And products with environmental, social, and governance claims saw a 5-year compound annual growth rate of 9.9%, outperforming conventional products. What we see is when you pair a sustainability claim with another value claim or proposition on your product, there's a higher purchase rate. And finally, I wanted to close out this consumer focus with an interesting perspective that Deb Keldo shared at a Positive Luxury open house event that we had autumn of last year. So she wanted to address the say-do gap, which is what I mentioned earlier, where customers say they're willing to spend a premium on sustainably produced goods, but the numbers don't necessarily show this directly. 68% of consumers want to buy more, but only 12% do because it's seen as more expensive or they don't have the knowledge to understand why they should pay more for this product. So, in today's climate, practical concerns like price and convenience can overshadow sustainability in the shopper journey, despite widespread agreement on its importance. And Deb shared that it's our job to drive value and make sustainability desirable to the consumer and not rely on the consumer. And additionally, she shared with us that at Diageo, they did a huge claims study on purchase attempt. And when you add a sustainability claim to a core category claim, like I mentioned before, the purchase intent increases 16 to 24%. So, with this deeper understanding of how the consumer is looking at sustainability today, how can companies continue to advance their sustainability agenda and achieve growth and profitability goals when many consumers aren't necessarily willing to pay a premium for it? So, I'd like to turn now to share the return on sustainability investment. Positive Luxury created a report that we published earlier this year, really amidst a backlash against ESG, regulatory shifts, and economic uncertainty. It's really important for businesses to demonstrate clear returns on sustainability investment. So we created this briefing to map out a clear business case for sustainability and kind of the 12 key commercial benefits that everyone in luxury needs to know. In the report, we map out these benefits along with how to calculate a return on sustainability investment with an actual formula. And I encourage you to download the report if you're interested, and I'll be kind of touching on it in this presentation. So I want to frame the conversation around this iceberg analogy. Basically, when you think about investing in sustainability, there are direct benefits which are quite clear in the luxury sector, from benefiting from premium pricing power, appealing to certain consumer segments, building loyalty with those consumers, and even new revenue streams. And I'll give some examples of how Butterfly Mark certified brands are doing this in their businesses. But beneath the surface of the iceberg, there are a lot of indirect benefits and also costs of inaction from not investing in sustainability. And this is an important juncture to sort of remind ourselves of these and also think about how you can make this case internally in your business and begin to understand and recenter, reframe your strategy. I particularly wanted to highlight a few of these indirect benefits and costs of inaction before I go on to share some practical examples and case studies from our clients. I wanted to focus really on the beauty industry. So, three that I want to quickly touch on are talent retention, investor confidence, and reputational risk. Talent retention is crucial in the beauty industry, especially when you're thinking about the retail environment where customers experience the product. And this is really where brand loyalty is built. So having a workforce that's strong in the retail sector is historically challenging in beauty. And labor-related costs tend to account for 25 to 50% of operating costs for luxury brands as a whole. But what the data shows is that employees in sustainably focused companies report higher job satisfaction and productivity, strengthening the business culture and brand reputation. And a 2024 Deloitte survey found that 1 in 5 Gen Zs and millennials have already switched jobs or industries due to environmental concerns, with another 26% planning to do so. So investing in sustainability and having clear communications internally on what your business is doing is really crucial for talent attraction and retention. Investor confidence is another key area that is really relevant for beauty businesses. A lot are seeking investment or already have investment. And an IBM study found that 52% of the companies studied that had well-integrated sustainability strategies outperformed their peers in profitability. A lot of institutional investors and PE firms increasingly are prioritizing companies with strong ESG performance. So it's really critical to have a strong strategy when you're seeking investment. And finally, before I move on to the case studies, reputational risk, I wanted to highlight it's really, of course, relevant for all businesses to avoid, but we've been seeing examples coming out from premium beauty and fashion industries with large names making headlines in a negative light. So this reputational damage has been linked to issues in the upstream value chain with suppliers, showing how important visibility and due diligence really is, really crucial for your ESG strategy. So I'd like to ask in the chat if you can share some examples of how your brand has seen positive commercial outcomes from investing in sustainability, and would love to hear your thoughts on this if you have any examples that you can share with us. So now I'd like to share a few examples of how Butterfly Mark certified brands are seeing returns on sustainability investment. So this is a direct benefit that's mentioned in the report, which is consumer appeal. And what the stats show is that 76% of consumers believe a sustainable lifestyle is important because their actions make a difference. So this consumer segment is looking for brands that align to their values and that enable a sustainable lifestyle. The luxury value proposition of kind of investing in sustainability from a consumer appeal standpoint is combining superior quality with sustainable sourcing can win over the customer. And it also can build trust if you have validated actions, if you're communicating really clearly what you're doing in your value chain, and if you have third-party certifications such as Butterfly Mark, B Corp, any other kind of third-party verification of your ESG performance. I wanted to highlight U Beauty as a case study. They have grown significantly and received investment, and really their ethos is around developing product with rigorous testing and efficacy that's results oriented while not overproducing. So having a capsule skin wardrobe and doing more with less. And they have the Butterfly Mark certification. They really focus on efficacy, but also sourcing and ensuring that their ingredients are not highly extractive to the natural environment. And I thought I would share a quote that I think embodies this principle really well from U Beauty's co-founder, Tina Chen Craig. She was asked in a Beauty Matter article, "What are you most proud of having accomplished?" And she really said that they aim to be authentic, transparent, and sincere in how they talk to their community, and trust is a key value. I think this really embodies consumer appeal and how investing in sustainability pulls the lever that allows this to happen. And this includes not telling, but showing why the customer should trust us through their clinicals, their science-backed formulas, their third-party validated white paper on their technology that they developed, and their certification with us. So I think this is a really great example of this in practice. The next one I wanted to share, a direct benefit, is new revenue streams from investing in sustainability. So 85% of consumers report shifting towards more sustainable products and beyond to habits. So they're looking for refills, resale, repair, new sustainable habits, and their purchasing reflects this. So how can your brand kind of maximize this benefit? By extending the product life cycle in luxury, making things that are durable, making things circular, and also reinforcing your brand's commitment to care, quality, and craft, which are key tenets of luxury. I wanted to share a Bamford case study with you. So Bamford, they upcycle coffee grounds from their cafes into a body polish product that they sell. So this is a direct new revenue stream that they're getting from the waste of this other kind of revenue stream that they have in their cafes. They also sell refills, which has been a big topic in beauty for a while, for their home fragrance hand and body wash. They did an upcycled denim capsule collection with ELV denim on the fashion side of their business. And they also have a partnership with Cashmere Circle, which allows for repair and recycling services for the cashmere knits that they sell. This is a clear demonstration of how the business itself is getting new revenue streams from circular initiatives. But it also backs up consumer trust and loyalty and giving consumers new ways of shopping sustainably. And I wanted to share this quote from Lady Bamford in an interview when she was asked, "What's the most rewarding part of your job?" And she said, "It's the ability to make a difference and drive change." Specifically helping to support people look after their well-being through the services and products we offer at Bamford. I like to hope we can touch people's lives in a positive way, as well as gently inspire them to consider changing their behavior to care for our planet and people. So I think this is a really nice demonstration of how Bamford is also encouraging sustainable practices with their consumers and thinking about future consumption habits to really build a sustainable business model. This is an example of cost savings, which is a material efficiency, and it's kind of the middle of the iceberg analogy that we showed earlier. So if we look at the stats, efficiency improvements developed through sustainable practices can boost operational profits by as much as 60%. And in luxury, what this looks like is switching to better suppliers and materials to build traceability, transparency, and trust, and maintaining a luxury look and feel whilst still reducing impact on people and planet. I wanted to highlight Miller Harris for this one, a lovely perfume company. The actions that they've taken is over 90% of product packaging sourced in the UK and Europe, close to home, which reduces their carbon footprint and gives them more control and visibility over their packaging. And it also lowers cost. And then their warehouse and logistics facility reduced its proportion of plastic to paper from 19 to 8% in 2022, again, reducing costs and also a storytelling possibility to share this with customers to show the reduction in impacts there. And they've now got their bath and body products using 100% post-consumer recycled plastic, and their pumps and caps are 100% recyclable. So this is just one example of how investing in sustainability is also investing in material efficiency, less waste, less cost, and making the supply chain stronger, more dependable, plus storytelling comes out of that as well. Supply chain resilience is another example of an indirect benefit of investing in sustainability. It sounds quite obvious, but I think having an example is really helpful. The majority of supply chains, around 63%, are in a fragile state, vulnerable to uncertainty or disruption. It tends to be a really important key area that businesses focus on with risk mitigation. And the luxury value proposition of this is that can secure high quality materials while mitigating disruptions and co-develop sustainable processes with suppliers. This strengthens the supplier relationship and also, again, mitigates disruptions when you're producing your products. I wanted to highlight Irena Forte for this. They source their key ingredients from family-owned farm in Sicily, which also uses harvested rainwater and renewable energy, reducing costs and impacts in that way. The local relationship with their fulfillment house as well allows them to collaborate with these partners, and then they've been able to collaborate with their fulfillment partner to switch to the use of only recycled materials for their packaging products. So that came out of building a strong supplier relationship. And then they also use certified local olive wood for their spatulas for some of their products. So they have a really resilient supply chain and strong supplier relationships. That's also linked to sustainable storytelling. And here's a quote from Irena. And this is kind of around how they're sourcing sustainably as they continue to grow and the benefits of that from a business perspective. And she was talking about using upcycled tomato skins and Sicilian black bee pollen in her new product development. A lot of it is looking at our product architecture. Where do we feel that there are gaps? At that point, we start to talk about what are the most innovative ingredients? What can we do that's proprietary? What are the unique delivery systems to make sure the product is going to be successful? So this is an example of thinking about upcycled materials and more sustainable options, but also thinking about innovation and proprietary ingredients that will speak to the consumer and show unique value proposition. And finally, before kind of wrapping up, I wanted to share an example of supply chain resilience from Tom Ford Beauty. So the stats are that 95% of cosmetic packaging is thrown away, and only 9% of this packaging is actually recycled globally. This is a huge issue for the beauty industry, as you're all well aware, I'm sure. And there needs to be systemic change for packaging in the beauty industry to kind of become recyclable by consumers, and it needs to be a collective effort. So Tom Ford Beauty have created a plastic innovation accelerator. The luxury value proposition of this investment is not only reducing reliance on traditional plastic materials and building, positive industry reputation for Tom Ford Beauty, but innovative material use leads to market differentiation. So if they start using more innovative materials in their packaging, this sets them apart from the competition. And as I mentioned, systems change is needed also to avoid future legislative costs associated with packaging, because there will likely be continued legislative costs, and that can burden your business in the future. So Tom Ford Beauty took action by launching a plastic innovation prize, and collaborated with other brands as well for this prize to tackle the thin film plastic problem by investing in next generation material innovation. This also is a great example of how a lot of sustainability storytelling online across channels can come from this, but really the root of it is addressing an industry problem. So it's great for all the businesses involved, it's great for the innovators, and it's great for the industry at large. And it's also great for the future of the supply chain if you're able to phase in next generation materials. So to conclude, I wanted to ask, before I move on to talking about how you can embed sustainability into your business, to you, which beauty brands embody sustainable growth? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat again. And if we have some questions at the end, I'll hopefully be able to pull a few of these out in the discussion. So finally, I wanted to share what it looks like to embed sustainability into your business today. So this is how Positive Luxury advises businesses on turning sustainability into profit, no matter where you are on your sustainability journey. So it's really a roadmap on how we help clients integrate ESG seamlessly into their business strategy at any level. If you look at the lower left corner, this kind of starts with discovering your kind of materiality, doing a health check and gap analysis to identify where you might have risks or opportunities in your business and how you can prioritize efforts and really what is the roadmap going forward. So this could be if you're in the earlier stages of incorporating sustainability into your business strategy. If you've already laid the groundwork for ESG and are taking action, maybe you have a purpose and strategy. This is where the transformation and implementation part comes into play. So looking at transitioning your ambitions into practical, measurable solutions, measuring your impacts, which will allow you to then communicate later on, and really looking at how you can reduce impacts in your operations and your supply chain, and also staying ahead of regulatory requirements. And once you're taking these actions, then you can feel confident in both verification. So whether that's a certification like Butterfly Mark, and also external communications, which allows you to really build transparency and trust and avoid greenwashing because you know that you've taken trustworthy action and kind of documented it correctly throughout the journey. So we'd love to support your business on any stage of this journey, depending on whether you're early stages or all the way through to kind of transparency and trust building. Before I kind of wrap up the presentation, if you're interested in what the Butterfly Mark certification is, I wanted to share a brief overview of our framework. So this framework is built on global standards and really helps us to advise businesses on how they can reach higher and higher standards. We have 23 drivers in our ESG assessment that we look at. We use a bespoke double materiality analysis to create a tailored assessment for each business that we take through the certification. So if you want to learn more, like I said, please feel free to reach out to me after the presentation. I'm happy to have a one-to-one chat with you. That wraps the presentation for today. I hope it was interesting and helpful and you got some insights on growing your brand sustainably. And now I'm going to pass it over to Sally to facilitate a bit of Q&A.
Yeah, sure. Thank you ever so much. That was fantastic, Charlotte. It's a really important reminder. And then I was also, as you talked about Tom Ford, I'm very happy that they're doing things because I can't bear that thin plastic packaging. It feels very strange still sometimes when you come across that, but it is a huge problem, I understand. So bravo to them.
Yeah.
Some of the questions that we have, so some of the brands that people are kind of calling out as doing good work, we have Upcircle, who are both CEW award winners. I think Jessica's given a shout out to, and Kerry has said, oh, Finisterre, we love Finisterre, amazing knitwear, beautiful brand, and Akin as well. So shouts out to them. But some questions here. So I guess there's I can see on the chat there's a mixture of brands and backgrounds here, people that work in big brands, big global brands, but also some smaller brands as well. Do you work with smaller luxury beauty brands? Like who are some of the beauty brands that you work with at Positive Luxury?
We do, yes. So we work with small luxury beauty brands and we work with brands from all over the world. So for example, we've certified Kea, they're based in New Zealand. Seabody, Ayuna is a beautiful brand that we work with. We work with Nani Pua, they're based in California. And Skin Cycles is a really exciting startup as well that we started working with last year. So yes, small startups, medium, all the way through to large.
Because I think sometimes these kind of like taking on the Butterfly Mark or whatever can feel a bit overwhelming, like where do I start? But I know you guys are very open and will talk to all kinds of brands. So I guess to that end, for a small brand who are looking to make a proper sustainability strategy, like where do they start? Like if they're in that early stage of like, we've got to grow, we've got to establish ourselves, how can they do that alongside having a growth strategy?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a question that we get a lot. And absolutely, when you're in the early stages of a business, you're balancing a lot of different priorities. And so a lot of founders want to start their business from being sustainable from the ground up, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think it's much easier to do that than to try to go back and change processes later on. But a good place to start is firstly building strong relationships with your suppliers and understanding where there could be potential risks sourcing in certain areas. It's oftentimes more expensive to source closer to home, but sometimes it's the better long-term decision.
Yeah,
Uh, and then also, this sounds obvious, but understanding your key consumer and what values they have when it comes to sustainability and kind of how are you trying to target that. And then learning what the core sustainability issues are for your sector. So
yeah,
I mentioned we work cross sector. Beauty has very different focus areas from even fashion or from, jewelry and watches. So looking at what are the sector topics such as waste, chemicals, hazardous materials,
yeah,
health and safety for beauty, and then drill down deeper to see what your key stakeholders in your business, whether it's your suppliers, your customers, and your team really care about. And that can start to help you form what you should focus on in your strategy. And I think back in the day, businesses would try to do everything across ESG, and it ended up, they ended up making commitments that they couldn't follow through on. So it makes more sense to focus on what's most material and impactful for your business. And that's how I recommend starting.
yeah. That's great advice. And I guess the other thing that is important for brands, like how do you effectively measure sustainability, and also importantly communicate success in sustainability? Because I think the consumer can be you've got to be careful how you can communicate success and your efforts in sustainability to make sure it's coming across authentic, and because as we know, many cases you get people see through those very quickly. So
Yeah.
how do you do that with safety?
Yeah, I think it's better to measure accurately first and make sure that your data is correct before you communicate. But similarly, I think transparency is really, really crucial to building trust with the consumer. I
Mm.
think a lot of our clients do a great job of this, which is saying, we're not perfect yet, but we're looking to reduce this, and this is our goal. So
Yeah,
for packaging, our footprint is this right now, but we're looking to reduce that by 11% by 2030. So using data, actual data to communicate and avoiding fluff is what we always recommend. And similarly, not being over technical. So striking that balance between sharing accurate data, but also being succinct and not overcomplicating so that the consumer is left even more confused.
yeah,
But it's true that, green claims are something to be wary of. And we always recommend, if you have an expert that you can run your marketing and communications by before kind of going live with a campaign, we always recommend that.
yeah, definitely. Very good advice. Now, somebody's asked about fragrance specifically. So it's a different kind of topic, really. But like,
Yeah.
the question is how to be sustainable in fragrance when these can be seen as unhygienic in terms of refill. So I mean, that's a big old topic. I don't know if you have a kind of a view on that, but I certainly I have a view, but I don't think it's necessarily helpful in this conversation. But
I
over to
think
you,
it's
Charlotte.
it's a good question. I have some background in the fragrance industry. I think when it comes to being unhygienic, that's a topic I'm not an expert on, but I will say that there are brands that do refills that have invented their own technologies that seem to work quite well. Diptyque being one of them. I know that they have in-store refills that they offer for their fragrances. So they had to invent a technology that would do it so it wasn't manual. But when it comes to refilling home fragrance, that can be done at home and it's not unhygienic.
Mm.
But I think also there's a wider conversation around encouraging consumers to purchase refills, making
Yeah.
that desirable luxury experience for them. Um, and there's a lot of other conversations, even taking a step back on what does it mean for fragrance to be sustainable? What does
Mm.
sustainability mean?
That's a whole other
Which
presentation.
is a whole other topic.
Yeah. And I've heard it sort of that there sometimes is a bit of an apathy. There can be an apathy with topics that feel overwhelming, big topics. So do you think, I feel like we've turned a corner actually, but do you think that sustainability stroke ESG are overused terms in our industry? Like, have they lost their meaning? Do we all still understand it? Has the meaning changed over the last 3 years? Like, where are we now? I'm assuming we would come to to your Positive Luxury website and find an expert succinct of all of.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the definition of sustainability and what it means is evolving, and what it means for business is evolving quite a lot. But I think part of that comes from there's not universally recognized legislation, there's confusion, there's different approaches, and as I mentioned, I think people maybe overused it in a marketing sense, and then it got the meaning of sustainability has become diluted. So it's all about taking real action, measuring things accurately, using third-party verification like Positive Luxury. But just I think that's the key is authenticity. The consumer is really, really aware when brands are not being authentic nowadays in particular. So I think the future of sustainability it's more just an evolution of how we're addressing it, which is taking real action and not making big, bold claims that we can't follow through on.
For sure, for sure. I think we've got time for one more. And I guess this is probably a nasty question to ask you, and I don't mean to be nasty, but I'd just be interested to hear your take, which is somebody's asked about your opinion on the word clean, which I know is a word that has very different meanings in the US and the UK. How do brands that are present in all markets, like how do you address that word? Because some people understand it, some people hate that word. Like, how do you advise brands that already have that word on their packaging, for example, or on their
Yeah.
materials?
I think it's a difficult one because it's become quite contentious. It has been used in ways that are misleading. So it's hard to, if it's already on your packaging, that's one thing. But I
Yeah,
think if you think back to what are you trying to communicate to the consumer and how are you building authenticity? Does that word feel authentic to you?
yeah,
I think to me, clean, it could mean a different thing to me than to each person. So I think it's more about looking at is that word a word we want to be using if it's unclear what it means. I
yeah.
also think in sustainability land, clean sometimes means naturally derived and healthy and safe for the consumer, but clean also could mean clean as in more sustainably made.
Yeah.
So, biotech could be
Yeah.
clean. So again, I tend to shy away from using words that aren't clear what they mean.
Yes, absolutely. Very good advice. Well, it's been brilliant. What a fantastic session. It's flown by actually, Charlotte. I'm really sorry. I feel like there could be so many more questions and discussions that we will probably have down the line. And really thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. If anybody has any questions that they walk away and think, oh my gosh, I wish I'd asked that, please get in touch with either us, CW, or to Charlotte directly. We'll follow up with everybody who's attended after the session, of course, and try and help where we can. I know you're very happy to do so. So next week we're moving to our virtual stage with Sakana. So if you haven't signed up for that, I know that registrations will close very soon. But really, on behalf of all of us, Charlotte, thank you ever so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank
We
you.
loved working with Positive Luxury, and we'll very much hope to see you soon. So thank you, everybody. Take
Thank you so
care.
much for having me. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.